Lesson 1.10, Properties of Algebra. A lot of this is repeat of, well, we've already covered the properties of the commutative property, associative property, and distributive property in a different episode or a different video I have already called Properties, so you can go back for those. But I will introduce the identity and inverse properties in this lesson. So we'll take a look at that, and if you're lucky, you might see me do my laundry during this episode. My laundry timer is about to go off, so we'll see what exciting things we have in store. Calm down. Just like all our other properties, we have, well, let me start with this. We have the identity property. Now, just like all our other properties, there's a version for multiplication and there's a version for addition. So identity, what does identity mean? It's just like what something is. So if we were to take A, let's start with multiplication. A, what can we multiply by A to get A? Well, A times 1 equals A. So that also tells us that, and with substitution, we can replace A with anything. So that tells us that anything times 1 equals itself. So 27 times 1 equals 27. This is called the identity property of multiplication because we can multiply by 1 and get the exact same thing we started with. It keeps its identity. 27 stays 27. Our variables stay our variables. We can also do it with addition. So let's do the same thing. A plus what will give us A? 0. A plus 0 gives us A. And to use another example, 27 plus 0 gives us 27. This is called the identity property of addition because what we started with, we end up with because we added by 0. So they have a name. It seems kind of obvious, but they have a name if we ever need to refer to it. And this is beneficial because if we have something like, if we have 1/2 times 1 plus 3 over 1/3 times so much stuff and it's not even wrong. I'm just confused. All right, let me start over. 1/5 times 1 plus 2/5 times 1. Now, if we know the identity property, we go, oh, we're just multiplying by 1. We can just get exactly what we have. So 1/5 plus 2/5, and that'll give us 3/5. It's something you'll go through the process, but if you recognize it, you can get quicker. You can just get to it quicker because you just know it's multiplying. And the same thing with addition. If you see a bunch of zeros, 2 plus 0 plus 5 plus 0 plus 6 plus 0. Well, we know that we don't have to worry about the zeros. We can just go straight to 2 plus 5 plus 6, which will give us 13 maybe. So it's just something to keep an eye out for because it can simplify, make things quicker if you know it. Next, we have the inverse properties. So inverse property is related to the identity property in this way. Instead of getting what we started with, we want to get to the identity. Well, that's a bad way of saying it. So let me just rewrite what we had for the multiplication. This is the identity property of multiplication. A times 1 equals A. Now, the inverse property says A times what gives us 1? That's the question. Well, if you've watched our video on reciprocals, which I advise you do if you don't recall, a number times its reciprocal equals 1. So a reciprocal is when you treat it like a fraction and just flip it. So A is the same as A over 1. So if we were to flip A over 1, we'd get 1 over A. And we can see this because cancel, cancel. Another way we could have done this is with algebra. So see how the 1 is all by itself? Well, let's get the 1 by itself over here. Right now, what's happening to 1? It's being multiplied by A. So let's divide both sides by A. You know, now that I'm saying that. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Let's divide both sides by A. So we can divide by A, or we can, well, we'll divide by A. Divide by A. That leaves us with 1 over here. And then we can divide by A over here. keep it, change it, flip it. If you remember our fraction rules, keep it, change it, flip it says keep the a, flip the division to multiplication, and flip the a so that it's a reciprocal. So that's how we get to it from there. If that was too complicated, just skip over that explanation, and all you have to remember is that this part. I'm over explaining something I've already explained in the reciprocal video. Just go to the reciprocal video. And so now let's go to the inverse property for addition. So what was our special number for addition? It was the 0. So for multiplication, we were trying to get the 1. Now we're trying to get to 0. So a plus what equals 0? Well, a plus negative a. So this is called the inverse property. So to cancel out an a, we add a negative a. And that's really what the inverse property means. It means how do we cancel it out? And for multiplication, to cancel out multiplication by a, we divide by a. Yeah, and so we can see that's pretty much it. Let me give you one example. So something like this. If we have 7a equals 21, we want to get a by itself. Well, we want to cancel. What's happening to a? It's getting multiplied by 7. So we want to cancel out multiplication by 7. So with the inverse property, how do we cancel out multiplication by a number? We use the reciprocal of that number. So we can multiply by its reciprocal, cancel, cancel. We're left with a over here, but we also got to do what we do to one side, we got to do to the other. 21 times 1 over 7 equals 3, 1, gives us 3. All right, if you have any questions, let me know. But it's more of a definition of something you already know how to do than teaching you your concept. So that's all. Okay, bye.